The next speaker has been very vocal about the assistance of the State of Israel to Ukraine and has immensely assisted the Ukrainian Jewish community. Jerusalem Post's Mayan Hoffman will now speak to the former Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Dr. Nachman Shai.
So we have with us today Nachman Shai, Minister Nachman Shai, who is currently the Minister of Diaspora Affairs, but of course has held many prominent roles within the Israeli government and society. And wanted to talk to you today about several issues, relating to the Russian and Ukraine war, related to the law of return. And specifically, we are getting ready to have a new government, a government in which you will not likely be a part.
Not at all.
Right. And you gave a speech, though, last week where you actually spoke to the new government, and you called on the government not to disrupt issues of religion and state, such as amending the law of return or conversions. What are your concerns?
I'm concerned because of the deep divide between, or a deep divide between the world Jewry and the State of Israel. And I think that this outgoing government has done many good things, but one of them was to repair the damage, to heal the wounds of the relationship between Israel and the diaspora, especially the American Jewry. And what I'm concerned of, the divide, which is not a political matter, it's much more important, so the relationship between us and the diaspora will return. And what I suggested is that there should be a dialogue, open, transparent, between the world Jewry and specifically the American Jewry and the government of Israel before they touch any issue which has to do with Judaism, with religious affairs in Israel. Why? Because it's not only about Israel, it's about the whole Jewish world. And I believe that that should be done based on, as I said, dialogue, negotiation, and full understanding of each other.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, this relationship between Israel and Jews in the diaspora. Why is the relationship so broken? Why do we have to be so sensitive right now?
Because we are remote from each other physically, and we don't share our views every single day. That's a technical matter. But also, again, I'm a political person, so I'd have to tell you that I blame the previous governments for neglecting the aspects of Jewish diaspora in running their business in Israel. For example, the issue of the Kotel. For 99% of the Israelis, it really doesn't matter if there is Ezrat Israel, which is the, let's say, the liberal, pluralistic area or piece of the Kotel, because most of the Israelis are going to the big Kotel where they pray and put their notes, and they don't even know about this small corner that was given once many years ago to the Reform, Conservative, both in Israel and abroad. That's an example. I feel that we should develop a dialogue. We should talk to each other. If it has been done unilaterally, just by the Jewish community in Israel, if you forgive me for that expression, 7.2 million Jews, it's still not, it is the largest Jewish community, but it doesn't include all the Jews living in the world, which are around 18 million people. That's why I suggest that when you touch matters, very sensitive ones, like conversion, the Kotel, the law of return, who is a Jew, and so on, talk to the world Jewry, talk to rabbis, talk to other leaders, and find a way to make concessions and compromise.
And now let's look the other way. There's a lot of anti-Semitism. Right now, anti-Semitism is spiking at unprecedented rates.
True.
What role does Israel need to play the other way, in terms of how can we help Jews in the diaspora during this challenging time?
Thank you for your question. Because in the last cabinet meeting, a few days ago, I repeated on my position that Israel should take a leading role in combating anti-Semitism. We don't do enough. You hear me? We don't do enough. We are the state of the Jewish people, a Jewish state. We have all the resources. We have all the knowledge. We can't hide beyond the backs of the European or the Americans or other people or continents. We should be there on the first row, on the first line, doing our best, calling and recruiting others as well. But we, as the Jewish state, I repeat on that expression, should be the leaders, because that's our commitment to 8 million Jews who do not live in Israel and are witnessing or exposed to anti-Semitism, something that most of the Israelis don't even understand. Because, thank God, there's no anti-Semitism in Israel.
But if Israelis don't understand anti-Semitism, how do they lead the battle against it?
How does Israel should, or the world?
How does Israel, if Israelis do not understand?
Well, we should work in cooperation with the world organizations, with major countries with anti-Semitism is spiking, as just said. It's the United States, it's Europe as well, South America and elsewhere. We can't do it ourselves, but we should encourage and push and convince and be in the front. Don't wait that anyone will do the job for you. We, in our ministry, for example, are monitoring anti-Semitism in the world. And I can give you proof how high it got, especially during military operation. Oh, by the way, during the Corona as well. Jews, even in the 2022, are being blamed for all the evils in the world. Most of them.
Most of them. So I want to switch to a different topic. Now, you were very outspoken about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, calling on your colleagues to approve the transfer of defense equipment to Ukraine.
Yes.
Why the passion, and where are you now with this issue?
I traveled. I was the first government minister to travel to the border between Poland and Ukraine, 3 weeks after the Russians invaded Poland. And when I stood there and saw the long, endless lines of women and children coming out with nothing except their own clothes, a small suitcase, a dog, a pet, and their children. And if they have no extra hands, I said, that's what they took, their kids with them. They were well dressed, by the way, like you and me and my grandchildren. When I look at the kids, they look like my grandchildren. When I look at the mothers or grandmothers, I saw my family 80 years ago in the same Europe, in the same probably soil, Polish soil in this case, running from the war, looking for a shelter, looking for a place to hide. They ended up in Ghetto Warsaw and then in the extermination in Auschwitz or somewhere else. And when I looked at this scene, I said to myself, where are we now in the 21st century when we try to, we believe, or we tend to believe that war crimes that Europe witnessed two generations ago will not repeat itself? What went wrong? What went wrong? And then I tried to convince my own country, which I'm very proud of, to accept not only Jewish refugees, means Jews who are looking for a place to live, Aliyah, but also non-Jews. And there was some resistance in Israel. Some Israelis said, "Look, this is a Jewish state, it's just for us." And I said, this is a big, big mistake. Because we, the Jewish people, are the last to turn down anyone who would like to come to Israel. And by the way, who wanted to come to Israel? Relatives, friends, and so on, some Israelis. That's all. Most of them found shelter in Europe. Finally, I convinced the government, I convinced the Supreme Court, I won this battle. By the way, some of them did come, most of them probably left, but I believe this is our commitment as human beings, as Jews, and as Israelis. I kept saying the same about military assistance, defensively to Ukraine. And I did tweet a few weeks ago something I truly believe in, that when Iran now join in to help Russia and so on, it's our turn to help defensively. I don't want to attack Russia. I don't deal anyhow in the military situation. But I feel that Ukraine, a democratic state, was attacked by a neighbor state, which is a totalitarian regime, very similar to the situation between us and Iran. And if we will need, I assume so, the world one day when Iran tries to attack Israel, it will be a similar situation. So those arguments that we are now using to help or not to help will be used at a time towards Israel.
Oh, scary situation. Let's talk about the Jews there for a moment. There's been a lot of international funding from North America, but also from Israel, to help Jews relocate to Israel, to make aliyah. Do you think it's right that we try to relocate them here, and why not help them to maybe continue to live safely in other areas of Europe?
We do both. We have to help them. And our ministry, the Diaspora Affairs Ministry, was the first one who extended financial assistance to the Jewish community in Ukraine, whatever their needs were less than a year ago, when the war broke out. We were and still are in constant touch with them. We talk to them, we communicate with them. They presented their needs, and we responded. Something unprecedented was done in this case. So we helped them while in Ukraine. Then they started to get out of the country. The country, Israel, is always available to get olim chadashim and under any circumstances. So some of them prefer to come to Israel. They are most welcome. But many are still in Europe. And now we are developing a new project to help the Jewish communities and the groups of here a few hundred, few thousand of Jews who permanent or temporarily found shelter in Europe, in Poland, in Germany, in Britain, in some of the European countries, using our own resources. For example, during the summer, by the way, we gave them summer camps. 1,500 of them, we gave them 10 days of summer camp, them and their families, the kids and their families. We want to do the same during the winter. We have money here in this country, not too much. First priority is the Israelis, but second priority, the Jewish people.
Incredible. Now, you were mentioning that it doesn't really matter in terms of refugees. Obviously, Jewish, not Jewish, a refugee is a refugee.
Refugee is refugee.
Right.
For the Jewish people, refugee is refugee.
100%. So now at this stage, it's been a number of months. Do you feel that we should continue to let refugees into this country?
Depends who. Jews can come and live here anytime. That's the law of return. That's the heart of the state of Israel. Non-Jews, if they want to come and stay here temporarily, I think we should open our door and let them in and give them a place to sleep and hot shower and some food. We haven't done enough in helping them. When I compare, and later after my first visit to Europe, I went there again and I compared what Israel has been doing, and we are far away. Again, I believe we are different than other people. We, the Jews, especially when it comes to people who are fleeing from the war and looking for a place to stay for a while. We should assume this role. We want to tikkun olam. We want to heal the world, to make the world a better place. This is one example.
So how are you going to make the world a better place going forward? What does the future hold for you? You're retiring from your role. So what legacy are you going to leave, and what's next?
Well, I've done everything I could in 18 months. It's very short. We were actually stopped in the middle of some of the project that we were involved. I think we've done a good job, but I'm not the one to compliment myself. I have no idea where I'm going. I'm available. Look, I'm unemployed. The Israeli is looking for a job. I hope to do something in the areas that I became an expert on. Diaspora is one of them, but Israel is as well. I have my PhD. I've done a lot of work in the media. I like to deal with public diplomacy, which is the topic of my PhD. Well, I can give you a whole line of credentials, but I was lucky to be minister in this government. I was always thinking about my family. Many members of them were perished in the Holocaust. I carried the name of Nechama, who was my aunt, my late aunt that was killed in the Holocaust. So the name Nechama, now in the male fashion, Nachman was all over, and everywhere I went, I mentioned her name as if she's watching me from the sky and saying to herself, you see, the son of Eva, my sister, is now a government minister in the state of Israel. This is something that I always carry with me.
Well, it's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate all of your thoughts.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.